Imagine a place so massive, so alive, that it literally makes its own rain. A forest has been growing, breathing, and evolving for 55 million years. A place where scientists discover new species almost every single week. And where some creatures still haven't even been named yet. A place where the trees talk to each other. Where rivers run the color of black tea. Where fish swim through the treetops. Where a single teaspoon of soil contains more living organisms than there are humans on Earth. No, this isn't a sci-fi movie. This isn't a fantasy novel. This is happening on our planet, right now, while you sit there watching a screen. Welcome to the Amazon rainforest. And I promise you, no matter how much you think you already know about it, you don't know the half of it. And hey, if you enjoy this kind of content and want me to keep making videos like this one, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button and subscribe. It genuinely makes a huge difference. The more people this reaches, the more videos I can make. It takes 2 seconds, it costs you nothing, and it means the world. Alright, let's get into it. Let's start with the basics, because the basics alone are enough to break your brain a little. The Amazon rainforest covers 5.5 million square kilometers. If it were a country, it would be the 7th largest on Earth. It's bigger than the entire continental United States. It spans 9 countries: Brazil, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Bolivia, Guyana, Suriname, and French Guiana, and Brazil alone holds about 60% of it. Now, the Amazon River. Where do we even start with the Amazon River? It's not just the longest river in the world. That title is technically still debated with the Nile, but it is, without any competition, the most powerful. The Amazon discharges about 20% of all the fresh water that enters the world's oceans. Every single second, it dumps around 209,000 cubic meters of water into the Atlantic. That's enough to fill about 84 Olympic swimming pools per second. When the Amazon River meets the Atlantic Ocean, the fresh water pushes so far out to sea that sailors historically knew they were approaching South America before they could even see land, just in the color of the water changing around them. The river essentially reaches into the ocean for hundreds of kilometers. During the wet season, the river swells to 50 kilometers wide in places. The surrounding forest floods. And not just a little bit. The water level can rise by 9 to 12 meters. Trees that were standing on dry land are suddenly submerged up to their canopies. Fish swim between the branches. River dolphins cruise through what was, months earlier, a forest trail. The whole landscape transforms into something that looks like it belongs in a dream. This phenomenon is called the varzea, the flooded forest, and it is one of the most unique ecosystems on the planet. Fish that spend half their lives swimming among tree roots. Turtles nesting on banks that will be underwater in a few months. An entire calendar of life built around the rhythm of the flood. And the trees? There are roughly 390 billion trees in the Amazon. If you try to count them at 1 per second, no breaks, no sleep, you'd finish in about 12,000 years. You'd be wrapping up sometime around the year 14,026. If anyone's still around to hear it, here's something that sounds like science fiction, but is completely verifiably real. The Amazon makes its own rain. The trees of the Amazon release enormous quantities of water vapor through a process called transpiration. Essentially, the forest breathing out moisture through its leaves. This moisture rises into the atmosphere and forms clouds, which then drop rain back onto forest. The Amazon recycles its own water up to 5 or 6 times before it eventually flows out to sea. Scientists have a term for these moisture pathways: flying rivers. Invisible rivers of water vapor that flow through the sky above the Amazon, carrying as much water as the Amazon River itself. Sometimes more. These aerial rivers don't just water the Amazon. They travel thousands of kilometers, carrying moisture to the farms of southern Brazil, to the rivers of Bolivia and Paraguay, to cities and communities that depend on that rainfall without ever knowing where it came from. When large sections of the Amazon are deforested, the flying rivers weaken. Rainfall decreases, not just in the forest, but in cities and farmlands hundreds of kilometers away. Droughts become more severe. Crops fail. Water reservoirs run dry. In 2015, Sao Paulo, a city of over 20 million people, came within weeks of running out of water. Scientists link part of that crisis directly to Amazon deforestation. The Amazon isn't just a forest. It's a weather system. It's a continental air conditioning unit. It's the thing quietly keeping a significant chunk of South America livable, and most people have no idea it exists. Okay, let's talk about the animals. Because this is where the Amazon truly earns its reputation for being nature's most unhinged creative project. The Amazon is home to 10% of all species on Earth. In one place, we're talking 40,000 plant species, over 1,300 bird species, around 3,000 types of freshwater fish, more than 400 species of mammals, and an estimated 2.5 million species of insects, the majority of which have never been formally described or named by science. They are out there right now, living entire complex lives, completely unbothered by the fact that we don't have a Latin name for them yet. Let's start with the bullet ant, named because getting stung by one reportedly feels exactly like being shot by a bullet, a wave of pure, blinding, throbbing pain that lasts for 24 hours straight. Schmidt's Insect Sting Pain Index. Yes, that's a real scientific scale. Rates it at a 4 out of 4. The maximum, the top of the chart. The bullet, and is not trying to make friends. And yet, the satyr maw people of the Brazilian Amazon have incorporated it into a coming-of-age ritual. Young men weave gloves out of leaves stuffed with hundreds of live, sedated bullet ants. When the ants wake up, angry, disoriented, and ready to express their feelings about the situation, the young men put the gloves on and wear them for 10 minutes. To pass the initiation, they have to do this 20 times. 20 times. Without crying. Meanwhile, the poison dart frog is out here being the most visually misleading creature on the planet. Smaller than your thumb. Bright neon yellows, electric blues, vivid oranges. Looks like something you find on a child's cartoon. But touch one, and you're in serious trouble. Some species carry enough toxin on their skin to kill 10 adult humans. The golden poison dart frog is considered one of the most toxic animals on Earth. Full stop. It looks like a tiny piece of living candy. It is the opposite of candy. The jaguar is the Amazon's apex predator. And unlike lions or tigers, it doesn't chase its prey. It stalks, waits, and then attacks with a bite so powerful it can crush a turtle's shell or pierce a caiman skull directly through the bone. It's the only big cat that regularly hunts in water, swimming across rivers to ambush prey on the other bank. Quiet, enormous, and absolutely spectacular. The Amazon's top cat is basically a swimming, tree-climbing, skull-piercing ghost. And then there are the pink river dolphins. Bodo, as they're locally known. Yes, they're pink. Yes, they're real. They're also almost completely blind. Evolution traded their eyes for a more powerful sonar system, since visibility in the muddy Amazon River is essentially zero. They're also unusually flexible for dolphins, able to turn their heads 180 degrees, which give them an eerie, almost humanoid quality that has fueled centuries of Amazonian mythology. In local legend, the Bodo transforms into a charming, well-dressed man at night and comes ashore to seduce people before slipping back into the river by morning. This legend is colorful and entertaining, but it also served a very practical historical function, explaining unexpected pregnancies in riverside communities in a time before better explanations existed. The dolphin made me do it. Classic. Then there's the arapaima, one of the largest freshwater fish in the world, capable of growing over 3 meters long and weighing 200 kilograms. It also breathes air, actual air. It comes to the surface every few minutes to gulp oxygen from the atmosphere. If you're standing quietly by the river and you hear a loud, sudden gasp, that might be a fish, a very large fish. 1 square kilometer of Amazon jungle contains more tree species than the entirety of North America combined. Every single tree is its own skyscraper ecosystem. The canopy alone, the topmost layer of branches and leaves, is so dense and so full of life that some species of frogs, snakes, and monkeys spend their entire lives up there and never once touch the ground. Entire communities of organisms living their full lives 40 meters in the air, as if the ground below doesn't even concern them. We need to talk about something that sounds almost too strange to be true. The trees in the Amazon communicate with each other through a vast underground network of fungal threads, sometimes called the Wood Wide Web. Trees exchange nutrients, chemical signals, and even warning messages. When a tree is attacked by insects, It can release chemical compounds that travel through the fungal network and trigger neighboring trees to start producing their own defensive chemicals before the insects even reach them. Mother trees, the oldest, largest trees in a section of forest, are central hubs of these networks. They funnel extra nutrients to younger, struggling seedlings nearby. They essentially nurse the next generation of the forest. Some scientists now argue that forests are less like collections of individual competing organisms and more like single, interconnected, cooperative systems. The Amazon isn't just a forest. It's a network, a conversation. 390 billion participants, all exchanging information constantly in a language made of chemistry and light and fungus that humans are only just beginning to learn to read. Here's something that often gets edited out of the nature documentary version of this story. People have lived in and with the Amazon for a very, very long time. Over 400 distinct indigenous groups call the Amazon home, each with their own language. And we're not talking about dialects here. We're talking about fully distinct languages, as different from each other as English is from Mandarin, each with their own governance systems, their own cosmologies, their own medicine, their own agricultural techniques, and their own deep encyclopedic knowledge of the forest built across generations of careful observation. The Kayapo people, for instance, have cataloged hundreds of medicinal plants and developed sophisticated agroforestry systems that blend wild and cultivated species in ways that mimic the structure of the natural forest. Productive, resilient, and essentially invisible from the air. Their farming doesn't look like farming. It looks like jungle, because it kind of is. About 25% of all modern pharmaceuticals are derived from rainforest plants. And in most cases, the initial knowledge of those plants' medical properties came from indigenous communities. Treatments for malaria, drugs used in cardiac surgery, medications for childhood leukemia, all of it traced back to plants that Amazon peoples have been using for centuries, sometimes millennia, before any scientist showed up with a notebook. And yet these communities face ongoing threats. Illegal land encroachment, government policies that prioritize resource extraction over territorial rights, the destruction of the very ecosystems they depend on. Many indigenous leaders have been killed defending their land. Some have been disappeared. The people who understand this forest best are also, too often, the people being pushed out of it. But they're also fighting back and winning. In territories where indigenous land rights are legally protected and actively enforced, deforestation rates are dramatically lower than in surrounding unprotected areas. Not because of drones or satellite enforcement, but because of something simpler and more durable. People who genuinely belong to a place, and who will protect it the way you protect something irreplaceable. Okay, let's take a breath. Because here's the part of the video nobody really wants to sit with, but everybody needs to hear. Since 1978, more than 20% of the Amazon has been destroyed. An area larger than France. Gone. Cleared primarily for cattle ranching, industrial soy farming, illegal logging, and gold mining. Every minute, right now, while you watch this, the equivalent of a football field of Amazon forest is being cut down or set on fire. Every single minute. The scale of it is hard to hold in your head. Satellite images show it more clearly than any words can. Sharp straight lines cutting to the green, like something taking bites out of the continent's edge. Smoke plumes visible from space. The forest retreating, year by year, in measurable, heartbreaking increments. Scientists have a name for the threshold nobody wants to cross. The tipping point. The moment when so much forest has been removed that the Amazon can no longer generate enough rainfall to sustain itself. The flying rivers falter. The remaining forest dries out. Trees die in enormous numbers, releasing the carbon they've stored for decades back into the atmosphere. The Amazon transitions from a carbon sink, something that absorbs CO2, to a carbon source, something that pumps it out. Some researchers believe parts of the Amazon may already be approaching that threshold. Certain areas of the southeastern Amazon have already flipped, emitting more carbon than they absorb. For the first time in millions of years, this is not an Amazon problem. This is not a South America problem. The Amazon is one of the primary regulators of the global climate. Lose it, and you don't just lose the trees, the jaguars, the pink dolphins, and the bullet ants. You fundamentally destabilize the systems that keep the planet's weather, temperature, and rainfall in the ranges that human civilization was built around. It's not dramatic to say that what happens to the Amazon matters to everyone alive on Earth. It's just accurate. They don't give up easily. This is a part of the story that's harder to find in the headlines, but might be the most important thing to understand. Forests want to recover. Rainforests especially. The Amazon has been through ice ages. It has survived volcanic winters, sea level changes, and the slow grinding drift of continents. It's been doing this for 55 million years. It knows how to come back. Given the chance, real protection, a pause in the destruction, a cleared patch of Amazon begins to regenerate within years. The seeds are dormant in the soil. The fungal networks are still threaded through the ground. The birds and bats carry seeds back in from the edges. Within a decade, you can have 10 meters of new canopy. Within a century, something genuinely resembling the original forest. It's not easy. It's not fast by human standards. And a recovering forest is not the same as an ancient one. It takes centuries to rebuild the full complexity of old-growth Amazon. But it can be done. The forest remembers what it's supposed to be. And people are fighting hard to give it that chance. Indigenous rangers equipped with GPS and camera traps patrol their territories and document illegal activity. Brazil's space agency runs one of the world's most sophisticated satellite deforestation monitoring systems, capable of detecting illegal clearing almost in real time. International agreements and financial incentives, paying countries and communities to keep forests standing rather than cutting them down, are gaining traction as practical policy tools. During periods of strong political will and active enforcement in Brazil, deforestation rates fell by over 80%. 80%. That's not a rounding error or a statistical footnote. That's proof of concept. The destruction is not inevitable. It is a choice, and choices can be changed. So here's where we land. The Amazon rainforest is 55 million years old. It has outlasted nearly everything. It's a weather system, a pharmacy, a library, a civilization, a conversation, and one of the most extraordinary collections of life that has ever existed on this planet, all happening simultaneously in the same place, right now, today. It is also, for the first time in its entire history, genuinely at risk of not surviving, not from an asteroid, not from a supervolcano, from spreadsheets, from commodity prices, from political decisions made in offices thousands of kilometers away by people who will never walk under its canopy. That's the strange, uncomfortable truth at the center of this story. The most biodiverse, ancient, and essential ecosystem on Earth can be protected. We know how to do it. We have the tools. We've even proven it works. But only if enough people decide it's worth doing. The Amazon doesn't need a miracle. It doesn't need to be dramatically rescued. It just needs to be taken seriously, protected fiercely, and left to do what it's been doing extraordinarily well for 55 million years. Breathing, growing, talking to itself in the dark, through roots and fungus and chemistry, in a language older than our species. Still here. For now. The question is whether it'll be here for whoever comes next. And if this video made you think, even a little, then share it. Send it to someone. Because the more people understand what the Amazon actually is, the better the chances that enough of us decide it's worth fighting for. And if you want to see more videos like this one, subscribing takes 2 seconds and it genuinely helps more than you know. See you in the next one.